you live in a home that you perceive as haunted or had something bad, try to keep it around 50 to 75% full. They need to say whether they want the seller to pay for the agent's fee. So I know people tend to be tempted to list their home for sale by owner. Unfortunately, the statistics just aren't there to show that you're going to have a successful transaction. My name is Megan Farmer, and I'm your Northern Illinois realtor, and I help people buy and sell homes all across Northern Illinois. Plus, I like to give you all the scoop on what's happening in Northern Illinois. If you like my content, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. That way you get notified anytime there's new videos out. As always, if you have any real estate related questions, please feel free to comment on the video or reach out to me directly. Typically, less than 5% of for sale by owners actually successfully close, and many of them actually end up listing with a realtor anyways, and a lot of times that's because they've listed it and then they've price dropped, and then they've price dropped, and maybe they've price dropped again, and well, wouldn't you know it, all those price drops would equal to or be greater than a fee of a real estate agent. You could be using a real estate agent and getting the price you originally wanted or more sometimes, because really the importance of hiring a real estate agent is the exposure. When you list for sale by owner, you might be using XYZ FSBO site or other of the popular home search sites to list your home by owner. Unfortunately, when buyers are online looking to buy, a lot of them don't know that there's a toggle between the homes on the market and the homes for sale by owner. So there's a good chance that there's a lot of buyers not even considering them, not even seeing them, and even if they can see them, they may not be considering them because of poor photos or poor description, or just kind of has that sometimes that stigma of like as is feel, but a little bit worse than that, just because they're wondering, is this person trying to hide something? So really, it just hiring a real estate agent and using an agent to try to get the most money for your home, and oftentimes statistically does happen. You get more money for your home than if you sell it yourself, is just a better and more strategic way to go. It gets it done faster, you get more money for your home, and it takes all the stress off of you, because it is so stressful selling a home. I've sold a home representing myself and my family. So I was kind of on like both sides of it. And it's a lot when you're selling as just the seller, and it's a lot even as a real estate agent. And it's important to hire someone that really understands the process. So when you're going to choose a real estate agent, check out their website, check out their reviews, make sure that there's no bad reviews, make sure their website's professional and their guide's professional, and if they have other guides that they're professional. And I'm talking about online, because it is so important now to have that online presence, because that's where almost 100% of the buyers are starting to search for their homes, is online. So it can't just be on those home search sites. It needs to be on social media. It needs to be through targeted ads on Facebook. There is more to selling your home than just listing it. So when it comes to pricing your home, it's not about simply just looking at a couple of homes saying, oh, okay, I think my home's better than that one, I'll list it higher than that one. You really got to look at more than that, because some homes might say 3-bed, 2-bath, but there could be extra rooms that could be converted to beds. And so when appraisers are actually looking at homes, a lot of times they'll go by room count, not just the bed and bath count. Because if you can make more bedrooms out of those extra rooms, that can count towards the value of your home. So it's really important to choose a real estate agent that understands the size of the home, that understands that when you're looking online, and just because you see a square footage on XYZ home site does not mean that that's the correct square footage of that home. So do not go by price per square foot, because in Illinois, we don't even have to put in square footage. We could put 0. So you're gonna get a lot of wrong valuations when you're just basing it on price per square foot. So highly recommend when pricing your home, you have a real estate agent who's looking at that, who's understanding, okay, is this accurate? Is this not accurate? Is there square footage they're seeing online with or without the basement? Because once again, realtors are simply putting that in. They could very easily be putting in the incorrect information, because basements should not be included in that square footage, but it can be noted separately in the MLS. So use a real estate agent who has access to all the information to appropriately price your home, because you don't want to overprice it too much. That is the biggest no-nos, overpricing it, because the correct people won't see it. You can price it at market value and even a little bit below market value. Usually a little bit below market value, you're still gonna get those buyers that would have purchased it at market value. But overpricing it is a really hurtful to your bottom line. Also, when it comes to pricing your home, you want to consider some of the costs. You can't really add in costs per se, say for like the buyer's agent or anything, but we can do a net sheet so that you can see, okay, here's where the prices are falling. Let's do a net sheet so we can see all the closing costs and everything. So let's say a buyer's agent requests for you, the seller, to pay the buyer's agent fee, then that also, can come off. So we can do net sheets, with none and with certain percentages, so you can kind of see where the levels might fall at. So there's options, but use a real estate agent. It is important to price your home accurately and get the maximum exposure when you are using a real estate agent. Because you can price your home accurately as a for sale by owner, you just aren't going to get enough eyes on your property. Why should you get professional photos? Professional photos is absolutely one of the most important marketing strategies that you can do, because professional photos are going to widen the rooms a little bit, bring additional light into the rooms that maybe you don't actually have in your home. It just helps pull the lights from like the windows into the lens. And also you're going to be able to put those online, of course, and then because nearly 100% of the buyers start their search online now, your first connection to the buyer is with those photos online. And it needs to be in an appropriate order too. You don't want to start with your photos with like the backyard or like the garage or a bedroom even. Like, it's kind of weird to do that. There's a certain order in which the photos should be, and really it should be laid out similarly to the house. So you want to say, okay, here's the front of the house, here's the foyer, how you walk into the house, maybe the flow of the house, the best flow of the house is really how those photos should be going in. You don't want to have, here's the front of the house, and then here's the foyer, and then here's a bedroom, and then here's the garage, and then here's the backyard, and then here's the kitchen, and then you don't want to do that kind of stuff, because that's really gonna, the buyer is gonna leave. They're gonna be like, what the heck is up with this? That's weird. They're not gonna be as interested as if it was essentially a photo walkthrough of the home. So you want to do that as best as possible. Use a professional photographer, and then with that, you can also have a lot of the photographers will also be able to do videography. So have a professional video of the home. You can do like a portrait, like social media video of the home, and then you can also do like the landscape for YouTube, any of those wider setting angles that you want to do. Plus you can hire videographers that use drones, so it's very, very smooth through the house, and you can get some of the aerial angles and come in through the house, and you can end aerially, like if it goes back through the end of the house. You can do a lot with that, and it really brings that buyer into the video and creates that curiosity as well to want to come see it in person. So a lot you can do in terms of your photography and your videography. I handle all that. You don't have to go and find that. You don't have to script it. You don't have to, upload it. All that stress is off your shoulders. So typically when you first contact me, what I like to do is I like to do an initial video call, and in that I call it a seller strategy session. So what we'll do is we'll just talk about your home a little bit. We'll talk about, you know, what your goals are, maybe where you're thinking that you think the price is gonna fall, and then just sometimes if you're on video, you can walk around and show me the house just virtually, and then we just then set up a time to meet in person so I can come see the house in person, and kind of come a little bit more prepared, especially when I can see the house through the video. I can come a little bit more prepared in terms of pricing for you when we do that. So the first step, when you contact me, we set up a virtual seller strategy session, and then once that seller strategy session occurs, we will make an appointment for an in-person meeting at your home, and I'll come and see the home. And then once that's done, I'll finalize the pricing. You'll also get, you know, the listing agreement there so you can see it, and we'll discuss it at that time as well. And we'll talk about the listing fee. Our listing agreements no longer have the buyer's agent fee in there. Usually we would break it down. Now in Illinois, the buyer's agent fee is on the contracts. So when buyers make an offer, they need to say whether they want the seller to pay for the agent's fee and at what amount, or that they're paying for it themselves. So that is something to know. This is newer in 2025 essentially. When we do net sheets, I will make you aware and say, hey, if the buyer agent asks for percents, then we can, or dollar amounts, then this adjusts your net sheet like this. And usually what I'll do is I'll do a few different percentages just because we don't know what their agency agreement is. That's for them to request. But once that listing agreement is signed, we're ready to start marketing. If your home is ready to go, if it's like super clean and it's staged, then photos can get done almost right away. Just you really with a 1 to 2 day notice is like all I really need. But I will say that there's a longer timeline, and I'll cover that in a moment. So when we're under a listing agreement, when that's signed and I'm officially representing you, if your home is not prepared, it's not been cleaned, it's not been staged, what I typically recommend is to get it cleaned or hire a cleaner if needed, and get the home cleaned, as well as pack up any unnecessary stuff that's out. Like almost everything on your kitchen counters, your bathroom counters, anything that doesn't need to sit out on the counter most of the time, try to find a drawer or a space for that. And that's kind of really anywhere. You just don't want a lot of clutter. If you have a lot of personal photos up, typically take those down, pack them up, because if you're planning on moving anyways, you might as well start packing now. And taking down all the family photos and anything personal like that will help these buyers coming in to see the home envision themselves in the home. So packing up the excess stuff and excess clutter, and cleaning and organizing. And then with closets and any like cabinets or anything, try to keep it around 50 to 75% full. You want them to see that it holds a decent amount of stuff without it being overly full, because if it's overly full, it makes all those closets, all those spaces look small. So if it's 50 to 75% full, that's good, and just make sure it's organized. You know, towels are folded nicely, the plates and everything stacked nicely. You know, the Tupperwares, you know, find a little organizer for the Tupperware if you can. Any and every bit of organization that you can do in this process is super helpful. If you have a bathroom closet just full of stuff and it's kind of a mess, honestly, just get the clear tubs of, you know, decent size that fit whatever fits in your closet, and like a labeler. And if you can somewhat organize the stuff and what it is and just stack those in there, that's gonna do wonders. When people see the clean cabinet, or even the clean fridge with everything kind of nice and organized, they get so excited, and it's like, wow, this is so clean. Wow, this is nice. This is nice. This is nice. That's what you want to hear as you're walking through the home. And a lot of that isn't just about the house. It's about the cleanliness and the organization, and then being able to see what they can do with the house, even if it's different than yours. So I do want to add that when you use me, I also like to bring in a stager. So I like to have a walk and talk staging appointment with a stager, and this can be even before you clean. It does not have to be before you clean. I know some people like to try to clean their house first, and it's okay to do some cleaning if you really want, but it's not necessary. Us as real estate agents and stagers, we have seen all sorts of conditions of homes, so you do not have to worry about what we're thinking, because honestly we've been there. And that probably not just out and about, but in our own homes as well. There's something called staging to sell and staging to live. And staging to live is much different than staging to sell, and what you're seeing on all the home shows, home selling shows, and even on the photos online for homes for sale. So they're completely different things, and so don't worry about the condition of your home. I like to bring in the stager because she'll tell you exactly what to do in all the rooms of your home, and then if you choose to use her services further, she'll be able to give you a fee for, okay, this is, I can bring in furniture for this, or use your furniture for this, and she can try to modernize it if it's older stuff or whatever, and that's all stuff that you can work with. But the walk and talk, I bring in the stager myself. That's not an additional cost to you. I bring in the stager because I like my sellers to be prepared and be more comfortable and have that good timeline, and they can say, okay, how much work are we going to do or not do of this, and then figure it out. And if it's just cleaning and organizing and a little bit of moving of furniture, that's pretty easy. A lot of that times I can get done in a weekend or a week. And what I ask for in return is about a 2-week lead time to publicly listing. And the reason why is because I like to make sure I can get the photos done that first week. It takes like 1 to 2 days sometimes to get the photos back, usually just 1 day to get the photos back, or videos. Sometimes the professional videos take a little bit longer. And then from there, I can upload it into the MLS. And if you want to privately list for a little bit, you can. I don't recommend more than like 5 or so days, 5 days to a week at most, because when you go public, those days are showing online. So even if it's the first day you're going public, it'll say it's been on the market 5 days or something, and it'll still be new for everyone, but it's just got that day count, and so it's kind of annoying. I don't recommend usually like 2 days, but if we wanted to, up to a week ahead of time of listing is fine, but it's totally up to you. You could only privately list if that's what you want, but I like to 2 weeks, get photos done and videos done, get that stuff back. I need to start some of my marketing, and I need those photos and that video to really start to draft everything, postcards or letters, and the Facebook targeting ads, and the Instagram and Facebook and posts and the YouTube. So I have a lot of stuff that I need to do with that content, and it's a lot better for me to be able to get that stuff done within that first week to week in like 1 to 2 days and get it ready to go out there. And then 1 day before we go public, I am allowed to start posting that. The marketing cannot start until 1 day before the public marketing if there's an address. I can do some marketing, but it can't really be specific to the address. So really the most useful thing to do here is have 1 day before we go public, which I like to go public on a Thursday sometime. It can be midday Thursday or even the end of the day Thursday. It's not that big of a deal. I like to go public on a Thursday. Friday, no showings. Saturday morning or some of the morning, no showings, and have an open house. And this can be 2, 3, 4 hours long. It really just kind of depends on the home and the condition. And we can do the open house and then allow showings the rest of the day. And then usually I like to do another open house on Sunday as well. And this can depend on how successful Saturday was, because if it's overly successful and you get a ton of offers right away, Sunday sometimes just not necessary. But Sunday, allow showings, do an open house, allow showings. So that's what I like to do. And usually a lot of times by Monday, Tuesday, especially if it's priced right, if it's staged, if it's clean, the photos are excellent. A lot of times once that's all said and done, you could be having offers by Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday. And I don't recommend making any decisions on offers until Tuesday at noon. The reason being is because on Monday, sometimes people's lenders don't work on the weekends. The ones that I work with do, but not everyone's does. So Monday they might need that day to kind of get everything sorted out. Whereas when you give them to Tuesday till noon to make that, then they can get everything sorted out Monday and get their offer written and in by Tuesday at noon. You can get the most offers at once. Now, I think that it's good to disclose that there's multiple offers, but that I'm not allowed to say how many offers there are. That I'm not at liberty to say. So that's up to you, the seller's decision on what I can say for that. But that's what I believe is the best strategy for that. So when you're all said and done, 2 weeks from a clean and staged home is typically when you can expect to go on the market. It can be faster than that, but I think for the best outcome of selling your home, if I can get that 2 weeks, that's really optimal. How long does it take to sell your home in Illinois? Well, this varies greatly. So many homes right now are still going under contract in under 30 days. There are some that are taking between 30 and 60 days right now, but overall, it's still very much kind of in that seller's market. It's been getting a little bit more neutral, but it's not there yet. It's still, majority of the areas are seller's markets. Obviously, when you get into a little bit more of the luxury space, that tends to be more buyer market heavy, but it all depends. So if you put your house on the market and you don't get an offer right away that first weekend, even with open houses and all that stuff, don't even worry about it. We'll do another open house the following weekend, and if that still doesn't end with results and if there aren't enough showings, we might need to consider a price adjustment at that time. And just because you need to make it a price adjustment, even if it's $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, does not mean that you won't walk away with your near your list price or your list price or more even. Because what that price adjustment can do is bring in multiple offers. And if those people really like the home, they'll actually continue to drive that price back up. So don't be afraid of the price adjustments. It's really important that you get your home under contract within the first 30 days because that gets you a greater chance of getting that list price or higher on your home when you do that. The market just tends to go down after the 30-day mark. The interest goes down and pretty much your money. You can pretty much bank on you having a lower list price, a lower selling price than your list price after that 30-day mark, typically. So Illinois disclosure laws that you should know about. So it's interesting because Illinois's got 3 main disclosures. One's the residential real estate disclosure where the seller has to disclose of material defects, flood zone, various the stuff, the plumbing, electric, any roof, the foundation, and they can kind of write, if there's a yes answer, they can write the explanation of like what it was. Sometimes they'll say, oh, there was, but we fixed it, XYZ. Radon disclosure, which you have to say, oh, yes, I have a report of elevated radon levels, or no, I don't know, no, I don't know if there's any elevated levels. I don't have any reports about the levels being elevated. And that's real simple. And that's usually the case with people. Don't shy away from mitigation systems. They're actually, in my opinion, a good thing because radon exists everywhere and the levels go up and down all the time. So just because you buy a home somewhere with radon that's low doesn't mean that it's not going to be high someday. So don't shy away from the mitigation systems. They're actually an excellent thing to get. And honestly, even if you don't have high levels, who knows, maybe you consider getting one just so you don't have to worry about it, because radon is linked to as one of the leading causes of lung cancer for non-smokers. So it's important to keep that in check. The other disclosure that we have is the lead paint disclosure. Now that's for homes built before 1978. Sometimes sellers do them if it was built after that, or especially like kind of right around it, like 78, 79, people will still do it just in case. Those are the 3 main disclosures, the residential, the radon, and the lead. And then every now and then I always get some interesting, questions. I love this fun fact for this disclosure, or non-disclosure, I should say. So if you live in a home that you perceive as haunted or had something bad, like death or a bad crime that was committed, you actually do not have to disclose that in Illinois. There are some states that you do have to disclose it, but in Illinois you do not. So unless the buyer or the buyer's agent finds it by, say, searching the address and like a news article comes up or something, if they ask, you do have to talk about it. But if you know something that happened, someone passed away in the home, or you genuinely think it's haunted or anything, you actually don't have to disclose that in Illinois. Should you sell as is or make repairs? So this is always an interesting one. So on the Illinois contracts, we have an optional clause on there that talks about as is, selling the home as is or buying the home as is. So when the buyer makes an offer, they can mark or initial that as is clause saying that they're going to buy the home as is. You can request it if you want as a seller, that you want the home to be purchased as is just ahead of time so that they know, because they need to put that on their offer. Or do you want to make repairs? This really comes down to kind of just the whole of the house. If you have a lot of nice parts of your home and there's something that needs to get fixed or a couple things that need to be fixed, a lot of times it is going to be better to just fix those things. However, if your whole home kind of is really just in need of a lot of repairs and really you're just trying to sell it to someone who wants to fix it up themselves, you're more than likely going to rather sell it as is in that case. But if you've got a home, even if it's older, even if it's a little bit older, but you have kept up it very well, maintained it very well, maintained all the the HVAC and everything well, there's not necessarily a reason to sell as is, because sometimes that just brings us a little bit of a stigma, a little bit of a, I wonder why they're selling it as is. Because if you take care of your home very well and everything is there and it works and it's clean, even if it's a little bit older of a home, you shouldn't even worry about it, because as long as those things work when the buyer gets an inspection, they're not going to say, oh, well, this is, some stuff they'll say is older, but there's a lot of stuff that says it's older, but it works, right? They can't say like, oh, well, it's not working properly if it's working fine. They'll look into all that stuff as the inspection, and if the buyer wants anything, the attorneys will discuss at that time. So I talked about the process to list. Once you get your offers and I discuss with you and I lay out, okay, this is the offer, or these are the offers, and how we compare them and help you decide which one you'd like to accept or negotiate with. Then once you have an accepted offer and all the parties have initialed everything, usually when the buyer submits, they have pretty much everything all initialed. If there's some negotiations, they might have to make additional initials and then send it to the seller's agent, and then I would help get it set up for you, the seller, to get initials. So with that, once those initials are done, all initials and signatures are done, then it is a fully accepted offer at that point. So once that occurs, the buyer gets 5 business days for their attorney and inspection review. So in Illinois, it's highly recommended for each party to hire an attorney, and this is because the contracts that we use we can only make very, very, very minimal, next to no edits to. And sometimes an attorney really does need to make edits or word adjustments to the contract to help their buyer or help their seller. So in your case, it'd be to help you as the seller. So it's really important that you hire an attorney. Usually the fees are give or take $500. 5 business days for the buyer's attorney and inspection review. Within that days, they'll get their home inspection. And if they choose to do a radon inspection or any other kind of inspection, they'll do that too. With a radon inspection, they'll drop off a device and it'll sit in your home for a couple of days, sometimes 3 days, depending on your home. And you'll need to keep the windows closed and the doors closed, except for just like quick in and out. And then the home will also have to be at a certain temperature. And then once they get that report back, they'll be able to, request anything for the radon if it's elevated, if they choose. And then, of course, after the home inspection, they'll get their report and they'll review it. If they want to ask for anything, the attorney will write your attorney an official letter stating the things that they want adjusted on the contract and if they're asking for anything else. So that's about 5 business days. So it starts the next day. So say we accepted an offer on Tuesday and there's no holidays coming up, then Wednesday would be the first business day. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday. Tuesday would be the end of the day. Tuesday would be the buyer's end of their attorney review. Sometimes they take all that time to write up that response. Sometimes they don't. And then once your attorney gets their response, then you as a seller also get the 5 business days. So your attorney will write something up or respond, or if you're like, oh, they asked for something, I want to get my own estimate. So you got those 5 business days to do that in that time. So same thing, if it was Tuesday was around, then you have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday. So kind of the same thing right there. So you'd have your time, they'd have their time, and then you just kind of finalize your negotiations from there. Something else I wanted to mention too is during the buyers. It doesn't have to be during that time, but typically I advise it that we request the earnest money within like 2 business days of acceptance. The buyers will drop off earnest money typically of varying amounts, depends on their offer. I work for a brokerage now that accepts that, so they would drop it off at my brokerage, and my brokerage holds it until closing. So that is the buyer's money that goes towards their purchase, but it's to show you how serious they are. So you've got the earnest money, you've got their inspections, and then the contract negotiations, all within about a couple of weeks typically. Sometimes a little bit longer if the negotiations take a little bit longer. And then once that's all done, everything's been accepted. If it hasn't been accepted, then the buyer gets their earnest money back and you go back to going on the market. If you didn't get other offers. If you get other offers or a backup offer, then it goes to that one. Or you can go back to the other offers that you had. But if that offer works out, everything's accepted, then if they have a mortgage, then an appraisal's potentially going to be needed. Not always. They might get an appraisal waiver, but you might have an appraisal, or if it's a VA loan, they're going to have a kind of a more in-depth inspection as well, and some stuff might need to get fixed. There might be some work that needs to get done there. That's a little bit more complicated. If it's just a typical conventional mortgage, we'll just go with that for now. Then you're gonna have, they'll have an appraisal as long as there's no appraisal waiver, and if that is at or above the price that they're purchasing at, the appraised price, then that's good, and it continues on further until the buyer gets clear to close and closing date. Otherwise, if it doesn't, then depending on the offer, there might have to be some negotiation there to bridge that gap. Sometimes the buyers can say, hey, I'll pay the difference for the appraisal, from the appraisal to the sales price. It depends. It depends on the offers, and that's something that, we kind of figure out at the time. So what happens on closing day? Well, usually you as a seller can sign the documents ahead of time with your attorney, and then that's just the buyer, and sometimes one or both attorneys will go to closing. Really just depends on the situation and what the attorneys want to do, but you'll sign the closing documents ahead of time. So on closing day, typically the buyer will go in there and they'll sign all their closing documents. If they have a mortgage, all their mortgage documents and everything. I always go as 99% of the time to the closings, 1% for various reasons. But 99% of the time I go to closings, and I will be there and facilitate if needed, just to see how it's going. And if there's ever anything, hitting the fan or anything, then I can get on the phone and try to help get things cleared up. But usually that's a non-issue. A lot of times once you get to the closing table, when everything's been really well thought out, like it is important to be, and everything's been followed along the way. And me as the realtor, if the buyer's agent doesn't seem like that great or anything, or even their lender, I will call those people constantly throughout the process to make sure that they're on track. I know the process well enough to keep them on track if needed, and I do that. I work really hard for my sellers, and I try my best to make sure that everything is happening as close to the original closing date as possible. Sometimes there's delays for various reasons, loan reasons, if it's FHA or VA. Delays aren't always a big deal, but as long as you're okay with it. But sometimes it's really necessary to close on the day of for various reasons. So I work really hard for you, my sellers, and in return, hopefully that's a successful closing. So you can just expect that I typically bring the keys to closing, and so once everything's all signed, I'll give the buyers, or their agent, the keys to give to their buyers. Just congratulate everyone, congratulate you. You'll hear from me, and usually the attorney will also get in touch with you, say yes, it was successful. I use transaction coordinators with my brokerage, so a lot of times they'll just kind of keep you in the loop throughout the process. And then same thing, once it's closed, oh, congratulations on the closing. So you'll be hearing from me, from the attorney, from my transaction coordinator throughout the process. So you have a lot of opportunity to hear about what's going on. Plus, I'm just a phone call or even a text away. Even if it's late, I'm okay if you text me. Usually up kind of late, it just all depends. So I'm as open as I can be. I do have a Calendly with a schedule, so if you ever want to talk for a really long time, it's best to go through that. Or what I'll do is I'll throw you on that. If you let me know, I'll put you on that. If you are thinking about selling and you want to know what the heck do I need to do to get my home ready, I've got a great 30 days to list book to get ready to list. So I can give you that. I can get you all set up and get you all figured out. So that is what the very important virtual seller strategy session is for. So we can really just do a base timeline about, okay, what do you need and what are we gonna do? But yeah, closing day comes. Once it's closed, you'll receive your proceeds. Once it's all funded to the title company, and you'll receive your accepted offer price less any potential accepted closing cost credits or adjustments, maybe during attorney and inspection review, plus any of the real estate fees, listing fee, possibly buyer's agent fee, and some other closing costs and transfer stamps for your property. All depends on where you live, and that's why I do a net sheet. So if you're curious about what it could cost potentially to sell your home, reach out to me and I'm happy to help. Once again, I'm Megan Farmer, your Northern Illinois realtor. If you have any questions or real estate questions, feel free to comment on the video, reach out to me directly. And again, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. That way you know when I pull out future videos.